Uh, Jack King, we ask him to come at least once a year because of the evolving, changing processes in IT and how it applies to us personally and professionally. His presentation is going to be streaming live on the internet, and he has some fascinating things to share with you. I almost didn't recognize Jack this morning. He came in early and he's sitting there with a tie. It's not unusual, but we thought it'd be fine and dandy. Very good-looking guy when he gets all dressed up here, and he's our IT person that keeps us going here. Because who do you call when it doesn't work? Jack. And here is Jack.
Hey, gang.
Hello.
So again, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, before we get started at all, I take it at this point most of you all are familiar with what a QR code is. If you're not, that's okay. If you have a smartphone, you can scan this. This will download the presentation to your phone. So if you want to follow along on your phone, don't feel like looking at my face, it's totally cool, I understand. QR code. So if anybody wants to bust out and take a picture, A-okay. Or if you just like to take a picture of me. I'm okay with it. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to talk about today. The agenda. It's full of lolcats, get used to it. Where are we now? What are the new technologies that are happening? And then where are we going with this technology? So some of the first things to talk about is what we here in Student Affairs have. We have 20 servers, 380-ish computers. Ask Plant Assets, they'll tell you a whole different number. 367 user accounts, 4.6 terabytes of data. To give you an idea, that is a whole lot of data. Now, part of that is WRFL server, which contains approximately half of that total. So WRFL's music collection accounts for 50% of that, and the other 50% looks like this. This is a breakdown of every file on our main file server. This area here is our home directories, which take up about 60%. That's pretty typical. Most of that is music that people have downloaded because that's cool here. We're a friendly group. We like to listen to some music. So we've got a lot of data. We've got a lot of Outlook data, but a lot of downloaded music that people have downloaded from iTunes and things like that, which is cool because God knows I need music to work. The rest of it, we see a pretty big breakdown. Student activities, dining has some pretty large numbers. OSI and student orgs, SAB is kind of large. Counseling and testing, surprisingly, or the counseling center rather. Sorry, the counseling center is actually smaller than I expected it to be when I mapped all this out because we record practicum sessions, and I really thought, gosh, we've got all this practicum video data. This is going to be huge. Surprisingly pretty small. So it's kind of neat when you map it all out and look at it, and you get a pretty big picture on how the whole thing is spread out. So that's kind of neat. So you might think, well, Jack, that must have taken forever. What else have you been doing with your time? Well, I've been reading a lot. I eat up Google Reader. If you don't know what Google Reader is, talk to me. I will preach on the mountain to you. This is the way to keep up with news, RSS feeds. So I have 136 news feeds that I follow. The last 30 days, now this is old because I've read about 300 articles since then. Just under 10,000 articles, and then over 100,000 articles. Now, when I say articles, that doesn't mean I'm reading like 100. I didn't read 100,000, research journal articles in the last year. Articles can mean anything that is posted on an RSS feed. So, for instance, I would say probably 1/3 of that 100,000 was lolcats. Funny pictures. So, but 2/3 was legitimate good stuff. Very interesting things. Google Reader will also give you a handy-dandy breakdown of how you have read. These are blue as items posted, Orange is item is red. So here's my 30-day breakdown. You can see there was a lull in my reading around Halloween weekend, and then a spike on Monday. And then you can see sort of the days of the week. Obviously, I read a lot less, and less is posted on Saturday and Sunday, just because most news outlets understand you're not going to read a whole lot on Saturday and Sunday. But then, I've got a large spike for reading on Monday, and then my times. I actually read quite a bit in the evenings. Of course, the work hours when I'm, not doing anything else. That's when a lot of my reading comes in, when I'm sitting there formatting machines or reinstalling images. So Google Reader is incredible. It is really, I could not keep up with the news today and what I need to know in my job without having a succinct way to get all that data in, organize it, categorize it. It's the business. I can show it to you later if you want. Okay, so what else have we been doing here in the Division of Student Affairs? Well, some new systems we've put in. Over in Campus Rec, we've put in the NSOft Fusion software, which that just got in and is pretty flippin' awesome. Compared to what they had, which was a home-built system using Access databases and a whole lot of really sketchy scripts and things that have been held together with duct tape and glue over the years, this is just a whole different thing. Ask Ron or Rob about it, and they will tell you it's a game changer for them. I mean, they're going to be able to do statistical analysis of things that they just had no clue about before. They just had no, way of tracking it or anything. And now we will have, much better data.
Jackie, is that system like what they use to swipe people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. I should probably have said that. And then TallyCats, of course, is the new system that we've implemented to track student data as far as who's attending events. Raise your hand if you know what TallyCats is. Almost everybody. Good. So anyway, TallyCats is probably one of the neatest programs that we've got going that's in development. TallyCats is sort of at like a 1 to 1.5 version right now. We're looking at like the next version here very soon, and what we're going to do with that. And what TallyCats is, for I know you guys kind of have a gist of it, but what we're looking to get out of TallyCats is data like what kind of students attend political events, what kind of students attend musical events, and then we can start to build relationships with those particular groups of people. Say, mostly seniors attend political events, where freshmen attend musical events or big concerts. But we might, when we start getting real historical data out of this, in the next year or two, we might find some surprises. I mean, there might be things that we just didn't anticipate, and we say, gosh, juniors really like poetry series. Who knew? So, TallyCats and the Fusion software are the two new things that we've put in here in the division. And as far as what we're doing at the university level, the Student Data Warehouse, which right now is running through SAP, but they're examining that. The Student Data Warehouse is a collection, excuse me, of everything you could potentially ever want to know about a student. And like, for instance, working with IT, we're going to get they're really interested in our data, because most of what IT has, academic data. They have Blackboard, student grades, historical data about the student, where they're from, location, the stuff you find in SAP. What we have is what events did students attend? What did students eat? How often do they eat? How often do they go to their residence hall? We have all this other data. The other, 2/3 of the time that they're not in class, that's what we have. So they're really interested in working with us to get some of our data into the Student Data Warehouse. So we can start running reports like, are students that eat 3 meals a day more successful than students that eat 2 meals a day? We'll be able to find that out in the not terribly distant future. So, neat stuff coming down the pipe. So let's talk about where the internet was. We've seen this a couple of times now. This is from 2007, It's from actually a comic called XKCD. XKCD is a former, I believe, NASA engineer who decided he was just tired of working at NASA and wanted to become an online, comic artist. So he does a lot of comics that are super nerdy, super mathy, and he designed this map of the internet. Now this is in 2007. You know how we can tell? MySpace, right there. So we got MySpace, and look at this tiny little speck of Facebook. Isn't that interesting? Somewhere in here is, here's YouTube. So we've got these areas that, like where's Google on here? I don't even see it, to give you an idea. So there's really, this is mostly social culture, social media things. So XKCD did this for a couple of years and they stopped doing it, but everyone on the internet thought this was such a cool representation of how the internet looks that other places have started doing it. So this is from 2010. This is the end of 2010. So now we see Facebook, 500 million. This is an old number. We're now hovering at 800 to 850 million on Facebook. Some of these, again, a lot of these are overseas. Habbo, Bebo are big overseas. But now, we see YouTube is its own continent. We see Google takes up all this, and they have put in these mountain ranges to indicate media. So sort of the collections of media. So you see a pretty good amount of media there. Windows and AOL have a pretty good amount of media. Google has a ton of media. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it's kind of neat to see the evolution. Oh, wait, where's MySpace? I wanted to find it. I thought I found it earlier. Suffice to say, it's really tiny. I think that's it. So, things, they change. So that's the 3-year difference. The whole design of the internet really changed. So what happens on the internet now? 60 seconds. 694,445 search queries at Google. So think about that. Almost 700,000 queries a minute. 695,000 Facebook status updates, 79,364 wall posts, 510,040 comments on Facebook, 600 new videos on YouTube. That says 25 plus hours of duration every minute. That's actually old. Now this is just under a year old. I've got a more recent statistic for YouTube coming up. So 25 hours a minute is actually low. Let's see what else. 98,000 tweets, 13,000 hours of music streamed off Pandora, 20,000 plus on Tumblr, 70 plus domain names. Some of the most interesting things I want you guys to think about are the almost 700,000 search queries and the amount of YouTube data going up, as well as the number of posts on Facebook. Those are really the key things to think about. Because, some interesting facts, 20% of all search queries have never been performed before. Let me repeat, 20% of every query done on the internet has never been queried before. Almost 700,000 a minute, and 20% of those no one's ever thought of before. Okay? Wrapping your head around all this? Man, it's crazy. So, alright. 3.5 billion photos on Facebook. That's also an old number. Or I'm sorry, pieces of media. That says pieces of media, but we'll get to that in a minute. The more recent statistic is 48 hours of videos uploaded to YouTube every minute. Every minute of every day, 48 hours of data. And you might think, wow, that is a ton. YouTube currently pulls in more there's more information posted. I think it's every 2 or 3 months on YouTube, that in the history of all broadcast television combined, in 60 years of broadcast television, we get more than that on YouTube every couple of months. Think about every broadcast show you've ever watched. All of it in less than 3 months. So the amount of data going up on YouTube is so phenomenally astounding. Let's see. Oh, real quick. So this is kind of an interesting, I know it's hard for you guys to read, so I'll read it to you. I'm not a big fan of reading slides, so you won't see a lot of text on my slides except for these. So back in 2007, 8 hours were uploaded a minute. And then we went to 2008 with 13 hours, 2009 with 24 hours. So we almost doubled from 2008 to 2009. Then we went up about 50% from 09 to 10. So we're going up basically, we're doubling every 2 years, is the way to think of this. So, I mean, we're talking about a pretty substantial amount of data, the increase.
Jeff,
Yes,
are these global numbers or like U.S.?
these are global numbers. These are global numbers.
We just wanted to make sure, so I was like, no wonder we're falling behind.
Yeah, no, this is global. This is global. And YouTube, as a matter of fact, with all the data that Facebook has, 70% of Facebook's user base, I think it's 70%. You know what? I should probably go to the next slide. I think it's on there. 70% of Facebook's user base is not in the United States. So, you talk about like one of the largest, not one of the largest site in the world, and it's only, most of it's off site. So, but video is huge. Video is so huge, as a matter of fact, that Netflix takes up 1/3, almost 1/3 of all of the United States of America's bandwidth. 1/3 of all recreational bandwidth is Netflix. So the other things to note on the in these statistics, Netflix, YouTube, Flash video, this is a real media thing, that's video. MPEG is video. So between all of the video sources here, we're talking about something to the tune of 40-ish% of all traffic on the internet is video. So, I mean, just things to think about. Video is big, but it wasn't until this statistic came out. This is from Sandvine, which is a major research institution that did this. And when this came out, everybody's like, holy crap. Because you just don't think about what it means to stream a Netflix movie. But you're essentially downloading, at high quality, you're downloading a DVD for every movie you watch. How many of you all watch Netflix online? How many of you all stream Netflix? So about 1/3 to 1/4 to 1/3. So it's awesome, right? Like you can just hit play and then bang, it's there. But we don't think about how much bandwidth we're soaking up. That's why, as a matter of fact, if you call your internet service provider, if you're on cable is a shared network. And if you ever notice that it runs kind of slow in the evenings when you get home, it's because everybody's watching Netflix when they get home. It's the truth. All right, so let's talk about some other media stuff. This is very tiny. Don't worry, I'm going to fix it. Let's hope this pulls up right. Oh, it's not going to pull for you guys. Let's see if I can do this and not script my presentation. How about now? Yay! All right, cool. All right, so this is some Facebook information. I'm sorry, 75% of Facebook users are outside the United States. So, a lot of, and Facebook has one of the highest return rates on any website on the internet. More people more people go to Facebook every day than Google. So think about that. Think of all the things you search. Think of the 700,000 queries a minute that Google gets, and Facebook gets more than that. All right. Statistics about Most people think it's inappropriate to friend your boss on Facebook. Most women don't like, well, their own friends on Facebook. 47% of people use swear words on their Facebook profiles. I frankly am amazed that it's that low. 90% people share posts related to sex 90% more than any other kind of post. Let's see. Funding. This is what I really wanted to get to. Top 5, the 5 likes on Facebook. Things you like. You know, I like dancing. I like roller skating. I like roller derby. It's good times. What do other people like? People really like Facebook on Facebook. Who'd have thought? And they also really like Eminem. Man, he is a popular guy. We're going to come back to Eminem. And also, if you notice, YouTube. Very popular. I mean, when people think about liking things, you don't think about liking YouTube, but obviously number 4 on the top 5 likes. Top 5 brands, Coca-Cola, which is my personal favorite over Pepsi. We made it, you know, I was kind of happy when we became a Coke campus.
No.
Yeah, come on. Disney and TV, Starbucks, Oreo. Oreo's pretty surprising. How many people in this room like Oreos? So not inaccurate, right? Top 5 movies: Harry Potter, Twilight, Toy Story, Avatar, and Shrek. You know, pretty standard fare there. Avatar being a single film going up against series like Harry Potter and Twilight and Toy Story. Top politicians.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're trying to wrap my head around all this information.
Oh, I know. Don't worry. Oh man, you think it's
Oh,
bad
sorry.
now?
Okay, sorry. So 75% of users on Facebook are not in the United States,
That's correct.
and all the top movies are American movies.
Yes.
Okay, so still.
Yeah. Well, because you know, there's localization, and I mean, Avatar was, you know, the largest movie released ever. So I mean, that goes around quite a bit.
I was just going to say, China blocks Facebook as a country as well.
Oh, really?
So that's a fifth of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Okay. So top 5 TV shows: Family Guy's up there, Simpsons, South Park, SpongeBob SquarePants, which I thought was kind of funny. Of course, we have Eminem there in the top 5 musicians: Rihanna, Lady Gaga, beat out Michael Jackson, which makes me cry a little inside. And Shakira. I love Michael Jackson. So sad. Top apps. That's kind of a, you know, Cityville, that's Farmville and that kind of stuff, Sim Social. And then the top developers. Surprising, you know, you'll notice Microsoft, the number 4 developer on Facebook. So, I mean, they've not missed that boat. They understand this is something they need to develop for. Here's the top website in the world. They're going to get a piece of that pie. As a matter of fact, Microsoft also is one of the top profiters from the Android operating system. As a matter of fact, people don't realize how much they get in certain licensing fees from Android. They're actually one of the top profiting companies from Android after Google and, you know, some of the phone manufacturers. Yes.
Jack, I came in late, but talk a little bit about gaming and how it impacts.
Oh man, I don't know that you want to pull my string on that one. Casual gaming is absolutely one of the top things on social media, and it's really been the driving force. Casual gaming was kind of looked down upon in the gaming community up until the last 5 years or so, and then Farmville came out, and well, that was the end of a lot of people's work days. I've never played Farmville. It might be the best game in the whole wide world, but as somebody who was once a professional gamer, I can't bring myself to do it. So I can do a whole lecture on social media and video gaming. So just ask me that. So let's move forward.
Yeah. Before you leave that slide,
Yes.
in terms of when you think about how to reach people through Facebook or ways we can communicate, and the diversity of the group, I was looking at something that made me think when you look at the likes in terms of politics,
Mm-hmm.
it looked like it wasn't as equal, like there's a high percentage of Democrats, really low percentage of Republicans. Do you see the population on Facebook is tilted towards one group versus another? Is it pretty?
No, I think it's fairly even keel. I think that it is that way because in the last presidential election, I think the Democratic Party had a very hard push for social media, and I think that's why that discrepancy in likes is there. I don't think that there was a large push for social media for the current for President Obama and that kind of thing, and so I think that's why that discrepancy is there. Otherwise, I think if they didn't push it like that, probably wouldn't be such a discrepancy. Also, being president helps you, have friends. Okay, so hold on here. Let's flip back over to. Oh, hold on. Might have to restart my slideshow because I went and did some crazy stuff. Alright, let's go forward here. And hold on 1 second. 1 second, Nathan. We'll be right. We're right with you guys, I promise. Alright, so let's go on. Okay, so talk about big amounts of data, right? So, can anybody tell me what these are? Flickr, Instagram, the Library of Congress. What are these things? Anybody? Flickr's photos. So is Instagram. And so is the Library of Congress, right? Some of the largest collections of photos in the world. Right? Wrong. All of the photos from all of these services are here. And here is Facebook. Facebook is the largest repository of photos in the world. Out of the 3.5 trillion photos that have ever been taken, Facebook has a pretty good number of them. Photography as a whole is not very old. It's a 200-year-old thing. The first photographs are being recorded in 1838, so we're really still pretty new to the whole photography thing. And it's really interesting to see Facebook gets in, like for instance, Flickr's, a while back had a statistic like, oh, we've got tons of photos. We've got, like they said, 600 or 700 million photos. Facebook gets 600 million photos a month. Facebook equals Flickr every month. So, to give you an idea, the weekend of this last New Year's Eve weekend, there was, I think, 1.25 million photos uploaded in 2 days. 1.25 million. Talk about bandwidth consumption, so with that being said, I look out and I see, so let's go forward. Let's talk about what all this means. Let's talk about some new technologies and things that, who ever watched the, has anybody watched the Jetsons? Yeah, okay, the Jetsons fans in here. So, just wait for Rosie. So we'll talk about tablets, we'll talk about smartphones again because I cannot beat that into the ground enough. A lot of people want to talk about social media. At the conference that we were just at, the NASPA Tech conference, one of the things that came up in a session that I was in, people were talking about mobile phones, and they said, my mobile phone is my gateway to social media. Okay, so that's what students see their phones as. They see them as a gateway to the internet, to this whole social world of theirs. So we'll talk about smartphones again. We'll talk about the iPad, of course, Kindle Fire, which you may or may not have heard of, and then we'll talk about fancy-dancy input changes, and I've got videos for that. Okay, so smartphones. 7% of all internet traffic now is via a mobile device. 7%. Now that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's almost 10%. And how long have people been using data on their phones? A couple of years. Versus the 15 years we've been using data on a computer. Okay? So the adoption rate for data on cellular phones is much higher. As a matter of fact, 50% of all Americans who have a cell phone now have data. If you remember, when we talked 2 years ago, only, I think, 1/4 of Americans had data. 2 years ago. 1/4, now we're up 25%. At that time, 75% of Americans had text messaging or text messaged with people. Now that number is more in the 87% range. So smartphones are getting smarter and people are using them more. One of the reasons for that is smartphones have, and I couldn't find a slide for this, so you'll just have to deal with me prattling on about it. Smartphones are, sorry, I want to talk to our internet audience as well. Smartphones have eluded Moore's Law. Moore's Law states that transistors double in processors every 2 years. That is to say, processors double in power or speed, however you want to look at it, every 2 years. That has held true since the 70s, when the first microprocessors came out. And that has held true for cell phones. There's a nice curve, and cell phones are on that exact same curve, except they're about 10 years back, or to say they were 10 years back, about a year to 2 years ago. Now, they're only 3 to 4 years back. The curve for cell phones is becoming faster because they've already got the technology, they've already got the transistors and the processors. Now it's a miniaturization process to get them into here. So, cell phones are getting smarter faster than computers. You can now buy a cell phone that 4 years ago was a desktop computer. The processor in the cell phone was a desktop computer. Probably that big. So how are students using cell phones? This is from second quarter of 2009, second quarter of 2010. You see increases in essentially everything. One of the larger increases being in mobile internet, with 9% increase from 40 to 49%. Software downloads being the other largest piece. Email, text alerts. Now, at the bottom of this is interesting because this is the part I care about. This is data. So we see 13 to 17-year-olds used to use, in 2009, 20 megs of data. This is per month, by the way. This is monthly. 20 megs of data. That is approximately, let's say that's 5 MP3s. That's 5 songs worth of data. Now, they're up to about 70. So, a pretty steep increase, more than 3 times. And then we see 18 to 24-year-olds were around 60 megs a month, and now we're at 160. So, more than double there as well. One of the things we know about mobile internet usage, particularly data usage, is that the main area that people use data in is software downloads from apps. Most of that data comes from mobile applications. So, things to think about. This is how people are using, they're eating up data through mobile apps. So, how many people either have or have held or have messed with an iPad? Okay, most of you. Awesome. So, as you know, iPad is pretty flippin' cool. The iPad now and when I talk about the mobile internet usage, the iPad now accounts for 97% of it. You want to know why that is? Go back to an earlier slide. Netflix. Because you can watch Netflix HD on an iPad. So what eats up bandwidth? The iPad. So, at $600, still not they're essentially a laptop replacement at this point. That's what we're looking at out of most tablets now in the $500+ range. That's a laptop replacement. You can now buy a sub $500 laptop now, which to me blows my mind because I think laptops should be like $2.5 grand and they're so expensive, but they're not anymore. But now that they're the same cost as an iPad, it's really a question of which one do you want to look at. So, what else is coming? Kindle Fire. The Kindle Fire was released yesterday. This is another ebook reader, very similar to the iPad. It costs $200. Yeah. So, if you think that we saw iPads on campus before and sort of mobile readers and things, this thing is 7 inches. I wish I had one, but I'm not that cool. So it's 7 inches, it's about like this. And it can run almost every Android application available. And it is super powerful and super cool. You know, just saying if anybody wants to buy it. The Kindle Fire also has there's much more anticipation. The iPad had a 4% adoption rate when Nielsen did some ratings, and that, or not Nielsen, when they did ratings, there was somebody, not work, take my word for it. The anticipated purchase was like 4% of people were excited and were definitely going to buy an iPad. That number for the Kindle Fire is 7%. Now, part of that is because now e-readers are so ubiquitous, and we now know what they are. We've all seen, and you all have messed with them. So, you know, part of that is familiarity, and the other part is probably a $200 price point. So,
Jack, do you need a data plan like on a phone?
no, these are wireless. These are wireless only. Now they do make cellular ones, but where are you going to go that you don't have wireless now?
So it's just like walking around with a laptop,
Right.
flat, skinny,
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. That's just.
How does it compare to an iPad?
It's smaller and it's cheaper.
Does the same
and
thing?
it will do the same kinds of things. Let me tell you some other interesting things about tablets. Within, and this is just talking about future stuff. Tablets now are going to be a lot better. I would say give it about 1 more year. One of the things that's happening that's really big in Japan right now, where a lot of the manufacturing for these things is, we see a lot. They are not so much focusing on power. We sort of hit a plateau for power. That's one of the reasons laptops got cheap and PCs got cheap, because suddenly things open plenty fast. Well, now it's about getting cheaper, not faster. And in Japan, one of the things that's happening is waterproofing. There's about a dozen tablets that are coming out in the next year in Japan that are waterproof, and they sell them as watch Netflix in your bathtub. Yeah. So these are the kinds of things that in the next year or so we're going to see completely waterproof. I mean, I can show you a video right now of somebody taking my phone that was treated with a special spray and throwing it in a tub of water and then making a phone call underwater with it. Same phone app. So, pretty crazy. Why do all these companies get into this? You think, I mean, that doesn't cost $200 to manufacture. They're losing money manufacturing this. Okay? Why do they do that? Well, because brick and mortar isn't really flying anymore. This graph, it's a little hard to see. The yellow shows physical media and how that has progressed, and the blue is digital distributions. So we see the digital distribution for music. CDs have gotten consistently smaller, and digital distribution is now up to 11.7 billion songs sold on iTunes last year. So Amazon versus Borders. Everybody's sad, Borders closed, tear. Amazon, who is the maker of the Kindle Fire, by the way, has shown that digital distribution is how you can push, how you can say, because all of these companies know that with digital distribution, There's no packing, there's no shipping, there's no warehouse space. The space that they're paying for a spot on the server or bandwidth, inconsequential. Netflix is a perfect example of this. Netflix is the reason the United States Postal Service is still in business. Period. Netflix is the largest customer of the United States Postal System. Their monthly bill from the U.S. Postal Service is something like $2.13 million, just in regular old mail. So Netflix, has seen a dramatic increase in streaming because it's easier. I don't want to have to, I'd really like to watch Lost again. I don't want to sit and have to get the DVD and wait, send it back, get another DVD, wait, send it back. When I can just hit net. I watch streaming shows on Netflix that I own because it's easier than walking in and putting up another DVD because I'm not lazy. Okay? Just saying, ask my wife, I do it. And again, we see text messages now. Tell me you guys haven't done it. Don't lie to me. All right. So now we're going to talk about the future of input and how. I don't know if anybody's ever seen 2001: A Space Odyssey. Some of you have. It's okay. Don't get creeped out. The future. Some people get a little creeped out about it. Some people don't. I don't. Ever. I love it. So let's talk about how these sort of different methods to interact with your computer work. These are things that, they aren't maybe coming. They're here. We're gonna watch a couple of videos. And I don't know. We'll see how this flies. By the way, integrating YouTube videos into the new PowerPoint super easy now. I used to have to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Now it's like, would you like to import a video? Yes. So this is a multi-touch display. Oops. What is this? Not going to play. That's cool. How about now? No. Oh, come on. Make me sad. I may have to pull these up separately. Probably should have tried that before I started. Sorry, gang. Uno momento. Alright. Alright, here we go. Multi-touch display. So this is some guys that just built this. Don't get me wrong, these are engineers. It's not like I'm going to go home and build this, but the idea is they're building a multi-touch display for relatively cheap. And that's one of the things that's coming down the pipe is we already see multi-touch is a big thing in phones. Being able to not just put your finger in one place in the phone, but to be able to put your finger in two places. And to understand that there's a relation between those 2 points. So this, that's just fancy light show stuff. But what we're going to see here in just a second is photo sorting. This kind of technology will absolutely be in Windows 8. I.e. the next version of Windows, the Windows that is coming out within the next year. You're looking at what the kind of technologies that are going to be involved in this. All the things I'm going to show you, if they don't make it into Windows 8, then I'll eat my socks. So, mark it down. This is going to be on YouTube, so you can hold me to it. Somebody dining might have to hand me a very nice sock recipe. So anyway, that's the gist. And they're just going to play some games on here, but. So we see multi-touch as a way to interact, again, not just on a small scale of the screen, but being able to rotate and understand gesture recognition moment. All right. Okay, so how many of you all have seen Siri, the iPhone? Are you familiar with what it is? Okay, if not, that's okay. That's why we're here. Siri is Apple's voice recognition technology. Now, voice recognition technology has been around in computing for at least 10 years. The difference is, what Siri is natural language recognition, which among those of us in computing is the holy grail. So what Siri does looks like this. Read me the message.
New message from Sebastian. Great news. We got the go ahead. Can you meet at 10?
Reply. Definitely. I'll see you there. Plan on running next. What's the traffic like?
Here's the traffic.
There's my wife. I'll be 30 minutes late.
Is it going to be chilly in San Francisco this weekend? Not too cold. Maybe down to 61 degrees in San Francisco.
What about Napa Valley?
Doesn't seem like it.
How many cups are in 12 ounces?
Let me think. Okay, here we go.
Set my timer for 30 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes and counting. The notifications or messages. Sandy Chen, are we still on for dinner tonight?
Reply. Sure, I'll be there.
Here's your reply to Sandy Chen. Sure, I'll be there.
Send.
So how does this not just affect the day-to-day user, but at the end, we see, for instance, a woman who is blind and reading Braille, and then she is suddenly being able to interact with a touchscreen phone that she has no idea what's going on here, except it's going to tell her what's going on there. So how does that help us with things like our disabled students? How is this kind of technology going to enhance the lives of our students? Keep it all up here, kids, because it's going to get better.
Better than that.
Well, it's...
Well, I'd like to have Ray Charles playing, who's also blind.
Yeah. So we've talked about voice. We've talked about multi-touch. So now we'll talk about gestures. You spend all this time touching things. That's kind of just it is. Now, obviously, this is not an American commercial, but
No fail?
the phone doesn't even have to be touched. It can recognize what you're doing in space over top of it. Yes.
Okay, so I have a question, and this can just very well be your opinion, which is great because I respect that. At what
I'm glad
point
you
do we
respect my
get to? I do respect it. At what point do we get to from the useful to the useless? Because to me, wash your hands and then take out your phone. I feel like the talk recognition. I think for folks that like that's reading Braille and things I think that's fantastic. But I also think that then that makes people lazy to not want to look up things, or somebody does it for them. Like, I guess I'm not saying that people usually are lazy, but I think
I'm lazy.
You're going.
So.
At what point does it get useless? I think we're walking a fine line as we continue to grow. So I was just wondering what you thought about it.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what I believe very strongly. I believe that I believe that computers as they are now are. Share with the whole class. Hold on one second, I'll get to you. I believe the computers as they are now are quickly. Part of all this is computers are becoming more human. That's why I put HAL up there at the beginning, right? Because people get scared, like, oh my gosh, my computer's thinking. Computer's a long way from thought, at least another 10 years. So just buckle up, because I'm saying it's going to be a little bit till we get there. But I mean, like, my kingdom for an assistant, like, who could schedule not just not my work, but I'm saying my life, like what I wouldn't give for someone that could schedule my days, because I'm a popular guy. And I have a busy social life, and so like I double book myself to hang out with some people this weekend, and then go to a roller derby into season thing. And I said, man, if I could schedule myself better, or somebody that knew when I was saying something, they'd be like, no, you can't agree to that. Don't say yes. And I think that we're getting to the point now where our computers are learning about us and becoming an integral part of our lives. How many times do you wear a wristwatch?
No.
Why?
Because I look at my phone.
Exactly. So why don't you just wear a watch? Because it's more convenient, right?
Yeah.
Because you already have it.
Yeah.
So that's part of the thing is you already have it. It's convenient. Here's a device that is already with you.
That's what she's saying, though.
No, I agree.
I just wanted to know what you thought about that, because I guess eventually my concern goes to, if our students, not generally, but if our students stop thinking for themselves, like, and somebody else is going to do it for them, what happens when we ask them to think for themselves and there's not somebody to tell them what to do? But
that's why I think our job is so important at this juncture. I know there's good, useful things, and then there's times where, like, I had a roommate meet and greet with some freshmen like a month ago, and after I made them talk to each other for 45 minutes, like literally, someone looked at me and goes, like, and I kind of looked at her like, what are you saying to me? And her friend goes, if this were a Facebook post, she would like it. And I, like, in my mind, I was like, holy crap! Like, I think that's why student affairs is so important, because we need to kind of force people to talk to each other. Even if it's uncomfortable, we still need to get them to do that. We need to get them to learn how to critically talk to each other, analyze what they're learning about, because yes, we have all this data, but not all of it's quality.
No, I agree.
Like, a significant portion of it is not quality. Like, I post videos on YouTube, and like, I understand it's not quality video sometimes. Like, so I think it's more like critical thinking. How do we get students to think for themselves so that they can be critical learners and critical observers and absorbers of information, instead of just taking everything in as truth, because a lot of students do that.
All right. Let's hold this discussion. We'll hold it. No. This is absolutely the reason we are here, and we are going to have this discussion as soon as I get done yammering. So we just 1 minute. I promise we will have much meaningful discussion. Let's see. Well, I'm gonna find my last slide. All right. So. Now, this is the last thing, and I talked about this last time, the Microsoft Kinect. Microsoft Kinect is a video game peripheral. How many of you all have an Xbox or play an Xbox? A couple of people, right? How many of you all have ever heard or seen this Kinect? Okay, most of you. So, what Kinect is, it's 2 cameras, and it literally just sees you. Okay? Think of it like the Wii, but without the remote. It's 2 cameras, and it runs software that says, oh, that's a person in front of me, and this is their skeletal structure. This is how they bend and move. Okay, cool. So, what Microsoft did is really interesting, because Microsoft owns not only Xbox, they own Windows. So here they have a test bed of 500 million Xbox users in the world, and they can release a peripheral to say, gosh, I wonder if this is going to work in Windows. Well, let's not put it out to all billion Windows users. Let's take it and sell it to the 500 million Xbox users. Let's put it, or not 500 million, it's more like 180 million Xbox users. So let's sell it to them, see what they think. People bought it, and they're like, wow. They don't make terribly good games for it, but the interface is what people go crazy about, because they can sit there and, like I showed you in the last year in the video, they can sit there and maneuver through menus just by moving their hand making gestures because it understands not just about their arm, but it understands their hand geometry. Okay? So they did that. I promise you, I swear to you, they did that as a test so that they can put this out as a component for the next version of Windows. And now that's the case. This video came from a developers conference. An SDK, it's Connect for Windows SDK preview, title of this video. An SDK is a software package that allows programmers to interact with things. So they released a Windows SDK. They released a Windows programmer pack for the Kinect. So these people in this video took that programmer pack and started to make things, particularly things that worked with disabled individuals. So let's see if I can. So that's what the Kinect sees.
When we first saw the Kinect, it became immediately obvious that what we wanted to do was to control the universe with our fingertips. And so we were really excited when the SDK started the development to be able to do this.
We can see the ring system here, and then you can see all the other moons that formed with Saturn's rings.
We were able to do just a quick navigation you see here just within a matter of a couple of days.
The computers are evolving to being able to see and hear on their own, combined with the context around where they can understand our intentions. We are able to go to much more natural user interfaces.
These two boys, armed with only a Kinect, some creativity, and a whole lot of brain power, created Navi, navigation for people with visual impairment.
Here you see at the right side the depth image of the Kinect, and we did an overlay of our obstacle detection mechanism. As I'm moving closer to the camera, I'm more danger to him, so the feedback gets more intense.
The Kinect tool gives us ways to do things in a broader sense than just technology that we haven't had good ways to do before.
I just write code. And people that come up with this stuff, I just sit there and go, wow.
It's a very low cost device that lets you do really crazy and interesting things. Like $150 and you get a device that can do full skeletal tracking, that's unheard of.
Kinect is a transformational new palette that will continue to evolve. And as we continue to evolve it, the people that take advantage of it are paying for this. Are using more.
So,
my dream app is the one that I haven't been able to dream up myself yet. That one of you will dream up once this thing actually gets its vote.
All right, so part of that, we'll talk about Google Plus in a second. So the idea is that here's a device that costs, I think it's $150, that can understand your body and what you are trying to do. And one of the things, one of those researchers mentioned, I thought was interesting, talked about contextual awareness. That's part of the thing about Siri and natural language recognition. For instance, when she said, what's the weather going to be like, in this place? And it says, oh, it's going to be like this. Well, that's a pretty easy query. What's the weather going to be like in San Francisco? Nice. But then if you say, what about whatever? Now, if you just said, what about Napa Valley in Google? If you just said, what about Napa Valley? It's going to be like, well, what do you mean, what about Napa Valley? So contextual awareness, not just with voice, but also with body recognition, is going to be in the next version of Windows. It's going to be in the next phones that come out. So these are things to think about. I mean, how our students are interacting with their phones. One of the things I forgot to mention in that slide talking about student data usage. Notice all those things went up. Every one of them. You know what went down? Voice. By 17%. Students made less phone calls. 17% less phone calls year to year. 17 this year, it was 14 the year before that. So that number is increasing. Students are calling each other less because, and I quote, it is quicker and easier to text and message. And it is. I understand. There's pleasantries that are exchanged when you call somebody. There's, hi, how are you doing? Yes, this is the reason I really called. You want to know how I know this? Because you all called me in my office and said, how are you doing? And it's not that you don't care, but we all know what you're calling for. And it's not that's not my name. So
we don't have to ask you.
You don't have to ask. If you don't want to ask, if I pick up the phone, you can just hit me with it. It's okay. Oh, but we'll talk about calling on the phone, calling me here in just a minute. Google Plus. Google Plus is one of the new things out, and actually we've got some Google Plus users with us, hopefully. I haven't looked for a minute, so hopefully the room is still open. And basically, Google Plus is one of the new technologies from Google. It is their social network. And let's go ahead and duplicate. So here we are. Gosh, guys, I really hope you guys didn't say anything embarrassing while I was talking to all these nice people. You guys can unmute now, if you'd like. So, this is Nathan Stevens. He works here at UK. It's my buddy Chris Medley. He works, well, let's just say he's a pimp. Let's just say, no, he's not really. He works in IT. Chris, where do you work at?
It's a company called Force Potato.
Force Potato.
It does mining electronics.
Neat. So this is one of the new things coming down the pipe. This is what Google calls a Hangout. It is a multi-user chat interface, and by chat I mean very literally. One of the interesting things about it also is I can join this from here. Oh! So let's yeah. So anyway, so it's pretty neat. I can close it because, well, it's not getting into that. But we see that now we have this this ability to connect and deal with people all over the place. The other day, I fired up a chat room and I was like, let's make it public. Let's see who hops in. I had a guy from Bangladesh come in and he talked to me for a minute. He's like, I'm learning English. And I saw that you posted this and I wanted to talk to you. And I thought, well, how neat. Okay, let's talk. How's the weather, man? Hot. Okay. It wasn't a deep conversation. We didn't talk about the nature of the universe or anything, but Hangouts are really super cool. It's part of Google Plus, which is again sort of Google's answer to Facebook.
I've been here the whole time and I've been in my own world.
Also, if you'll notice, whoever's talking in Google Plus that isn't you, I don't get. But whoever has actually got the most talking gets the big viewer there. So, like, for instance, on Chris's screen, he's going to see me because I'm currently the presenter. I'm currently talking. But when Nathan talked there, go ahead and say something, Nathan. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You're not going to talk. I'm just going to click your keys. One of the things this has been really useful for is actually people, is the deaf community. I'm very involved in the deaf community, well, less involved now, but involved in the deaf community in Lexington, and this has actually been a big thing for them, because suddenly they were using things like FaceTime and things where they were video chatting one-on-one, but now they can have a group conversation in ASL. And one of the ways, and I thought, well, how do they take the stage? How do they take the main window? And they knock. So when I talk to my deaf friends, if they want the camera, they knock, and and that's how they know me. So I think that's really interesting. And these are new technologies that sort of change the way we can think about a lot of things. One of the other cool things about Hangouts is I can take and, let's say, for instance, I want to show these guys, like, man, I've got the coolest slideshow. I can share my screen. So now if we pop over to Google Plus, what are they seeing? They're seeing what I want them to see. They're seeing that window. And I can do training, and they can hear me, right guys? Thumbs up?
Then we can.
Yay! So they can hear me, I can sit there and talk, and I can do training like this. So think about that. Think about what that means to be able to not just share a screen, but be able to chat and do all these kinds of things. One of the other cool aspects, stop screen sharing. One of the other cool aspects of this is the notes function. So if I open up notes, it's going to open up a Google document, because all of this is tied in with Google's big cloud of stuff. And here's a Google document that we can all edit collaboratively right now. We don't have to hit share, we don't have to do anything. So I can say, check this out. Hey guys, pop over onto the document. Go ahead and throw some edits in there. Nothing obscene. I have to tell them that kind of stuff. Have you guys ever opened the documents? Alright. It's over the top left on notes. Oh. Chris, did you already?
Yeah, it's loading.
Oh, okay.
I'm not on the fastest connection right now.
That's alright. So anyway, so the idea of like instant, and Nathan, for instance, if Nathan doesn't edit it, he doesn't get access to this document. But if Chris edits it, so you know we see Chris, if Chris edits it, it's instantly in his Google Docs. You don't have to do anything. That just shows up for him. So it's an interesting way to take meeting notes. I've done this with several people in IT, and you can see the cool different colored cursors there. Yeah. Pretty fancy dancy, kids. Think about ways you can integrate these kinds of technologies in. All right, guys. I'm going to pop back over to my presentation, so you guys can hang out. But if you mute your mics, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly.
So anyway, say hi to Chris and Nathan. All right. So that's some of the stuff about Google Plus. It's pretty cool, right? Google Plus is essentially a Facebook with better defined groups. So I can send a hangout request and say, I only want to hang out with photographers. I only want to hang out with IT people. I have groups for all these different things. Because when I'm sharing something, there's a lot of times when people might not care. For instance, if I'm sharing a roller derby thing, well, most of my friends really don't care about roller derby, so I can share it specifically to the roller derby group. So, just one of the kind of neat features about Google Plus.
Question for you. I mean, here in the Student Center, we have gazillions of kinds of meetings, people collaborating on all kinds of things. Would you anticipate, certainly I would anticipate, more and more this might be an expectation of people meeting. They need to have a wide bandwidth in a meeting room.
Right, and the bandwidth on this is actually very minimal, but something to think about. I know you guys have laptops that you can get. So the idea of maybe thinking about looking at webcams and things like that to enhance those services. You know what I mean? So now is the part where we get to talk about sort of how things are changing. And I was feeling philosophical. So, okay. So how can we improve student affairs IT? That would be me. Just for anybody who wondered. How can we improve this? Step 1, reboot all the computers. This is actually from a comic called Hyperbole and a Half. Which is hilarious. Hyperbole and a Half, if you've never seen it, is a lady in her 30s, and she writes kind of about life, and she draws all these kind of crazy comics to go with them. This is from a comic called Why I'll Never Be an Adult, and the original caption was, clean all the things. So anyway, Hyperbole and a Half, really hilarious. Some mild language, but really funny. The big thing we're going to talk about is this. If you have a cell phone, take it out and take a picture right now. Really, really, really. I am not going to impress upon this enough. This.
Even if it's a 2005 cell phone.
Yeah, I want everybody to take a picture. Oh man, I should take a picture. You gotta take a picture. This is so meta. I love everything about this. Oh man, it's too far away. That's okay. Oh man, I'm gonna post. Oh, you guys take a picture. Feel free to get close. Get close if you need to take a picture, because this is important. This is very, very, very important. Yes, this is a live QR code. Yeah.
IT service request form.
Man, if I'd known that, I just told you guys stuff is important. You got out of your seats, I'd have waited on you.
Jack, do you have to have
you can, yeah, you can, but let's just all get, even if you don't have an app, let's just take a picture of it.
We need some IT help back here, Tony.
We got it.
Tony took a video.
He's got his phone, so that's alright. Alright, gang. Alright. So, where does this go? Some of you have already found out. Some of you just now seeing it. This goes to how you guys are all going to ask for my help from now on. Starting right now. This is the IT service request form. It goes into a nice handy dandy Google Doc, which emails me. So there's that. I have every department I can think of listed. Active Directory username, that's so I can find you if I need to. I don't need your real name, not that I don't care, but I can look up your real name. Active Directory username, computer name if you have it. Some people might not. If your computer is down, of course, you wouldn't have it. Otherwise, there is directions on how to find your computer name on here. Then building, because I got thinking, I was like, where am I spending my time? Well, let's look at it by building. So I tried to include every building. With residence halls, I just sort of did North Central, South Campus, just to kind of do a big, I just wanted a region more so than anything. Different types of problems and requests. Accounts locked, emails, file access, ground passwords, hardware problems, software problems, new software, cartridge and a pear tree. I tried to get it all in here. So, and then, what kind of priority is your problem?
They're all number one.
What? 1 to 10. I'll let you all do that, figure that out on your own. What's the best phone number to reach you? How would you like to be contacted when this is resolved? I included a link in there just because some of you guys really like to be messaged on link. I think link is pretty cool and fast and easy to message people on. Further description, which is not mandatory, but helpful. So any details about the problem can go through here. So yeah, this is how it's going to fly from here on out. Yes.
What if, for SAB, we've got all those computers in the office. Would you prefer us put the computer information for the one that we like help with, or our own, so you know who's making
No, the one you need help with.
The one I need help with.
The one you need help with.
Okay.
So part of this is because people said, Jack, what do you do? And I say, I fix computers all day. And they say, well, how many computers do you fix? Hundreds. We've got hundreds of machines in the division. I fixed them all at some point. Well, I need some real metrics, because frankly, I need some help, and this is how I'm going to get it. So I'm just going to be upfront with everybody. That's how it's going to happen. Okay? Cool. Awesome. So everybody use this, and if it's a life-crushing emergency, call me. That's okay. It's still okay. I still have a cell phone. You can still call me. But I will expect you to fill this out. Okay?
The form is where?
The form is online. That's what you all took a picture of.
What if you didn't take a picture?
That's okay. I'm sure someone else took a picture for you. Now that's a QR code. I'll have a link that will be sent around to everyone via email. It will also be posted. I'll work with some people to get that posted in a very handy dandy spot. I'm also currently working on a frequently asked questions, so you guys can help yourselves. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, it's probably good to send something out on the student affairs listserv so that.
Yes, I will.
Assistance.
Yes, I'll send things out, but yeah, there you go. So this is
Taco party outside.
So
Where does the gas read? Does it go on your cell phone or does it go on your computer? Or?
it goes into my Google Docs, which I can check from my cell phone or from my computer.
So do you have to check it or does it alert you?
It can email me. I don't currently have it set to email me because I want to see what the usage is like first before I get 50 emails every day just for problems. Don't worry, I'm not going to set you on fire if you ask a stupid question. Feel free to call me with questions and things like that. That kind of stuff is still okay. I just really, really need metrics. And the way it goes right now when people call, I don't get any metrics. So, for once, I need you guys to help me. Think all the times I've helped you. Smile. Alright, so now let's talk about some other things other than me. How do we screw up social media? How does anybody screw up social media? Not us necessarily. This is not written about us. This was done from a report. Some of the most common ailments. You talk about sort of how we connect with Facebook and things like that. Well, this is how people mess up Facebook. Abandoning profiles for long periods of time. If you post something and then you wait 9 months before you post something else, you're not communicating. You might as well just print things out and lay them on the floor of the student center. Don't do that really, because then John will probably kill you. But you know, you don't want to. You're just throwing out information to know. Don't repeat yourself constantly. Don't sit there and look at. Don't say, "Hey, have you checked out Student Center today?" And then tomorrow say, "Hey, have you checked out Student Center today? Have you checked out Student Center today?" Because you know what's going to happen? That person's going to say, "You know what? Unfollow, block. Don't care. You're saying the same thing every day." Comes down to part of that is personalization. One of the biggest things you can do is personalize it, make it human. People don't care about. I don't care about a car dealership that says, "Come buy a car from us." I care about a car dealership that says, you know, we're gonna have, you know, roller skate monkeys, and then we're gonna have a guy on fire jump through a hoop for you. And I'll be like, "Huh, sounds interesting." You know, and it's personal, and it's a guy saying, "I'm the guy that's going to be on fire." Then suddenly it's human. I know that's kind of a crazy scenario, but you just want to humanize your communications. Don't just sit there and say, you know, "This is great, this is great, this is great." Nobody cares. Neglect to remove spam. You know, spam gets posted, unfortunately. Also, do not address negative commentary. Some people will get on and be like, "You know, I had such a negative experience with the dean of student's office, and I didn't feel that I got my fair shake," or whatever. You know, if no one responds to that, then other people are going to read that and go, "Well, gosh, nobody responded. Maybe they didn't get a fair shake." You know, if you read something where, let's pick on dining services for just a minute. Let's say you read a negative review where somebody said, "Man, the salad at Ovid's was bad," you know, and then no one said anything, you know, You'd be like, man, maybe the salad's bad. Maybe I should never get salad at Alvin's. But then if somebody else posts, I'm really sorry that you had that experience, come back in, blah, blah, blah. Then not only is it, they're going to see that bad experience, and that's okay. Everybody has bad experiences and negative reviews. But if you have a resolution to that, that is where you will get people go, okay, they care. Okay. Poorly worded automated feed, that's more if you're using things that shorten words automatically. Suddenly, perfectly good stuff becomes nonsensical. Say something to nobody. That's like saying, you know, oh, I've got this account and people are interested in what I say. I love red chairs. Okay, you love red chairs. Good for you. So you want to direct your message. I was at a presentation at the NASPA Tech conference from Butler, and their vice president for student affairs has a Twitter feed. And he had some really interesting insights. Some of the things he talked about were, and I'm sorry if we're running long, I have a little bit of time.
Okay.
Are we doing? Okay, good. Some of the things he talked about in his Twitter feed, he said, never tell people to do something. Don't say, go get a flu shot. You go get a flu shot. And then you have a picture of you getting a flu shot and say, I'm getting a flu shot. Come down, I'll give you an orange juice. Then suddenly you've turned it around from this thing that they're going to ignore to, hey, I can hang out with the vice president and drink orange juice. And all I have to do is get a flu shot. Okay? See what I'm saying? The difference in those two interactions, if I just said, you know, go get a flu shot. Sarah, go get a flu shot.
Okay.
Well, go get another one. No. But you know, versus saying, hey, will you come with me to get a flu shot? I would like you to come with me. Then suddenly, there's this connection between us, even if it's virtual. People that sell first and engage, never people that say, oh, this is, come to this event, and then somebody replies and says, oh, I didn't see, you know, I don't know where that building is. Silence. You know what? That's one person that's not going to get to that event because they didn't get engaged. You know, they didn't get that information. And it was probably posted, but maybe they didn't see it, maybe they couldn't find it. So how do we engage the students with social media? And then lastly, create an app for app's sake. That happens a lot. People will say, oh, apps, they're hot. And obviously they are. People are using applications. But don't create an application for application's sake. Don't say, we have an app. Well, that's cool. You also have a website that I can get the same data from. And I'll have to download an app that's going to clutter my phone. So I mean, raise your hands. How many of you all have smartphones that support applications? Most of you. Okay. So, isn't it a pain when you're like, I really don't want to download the app for Goodyear tires? You know, like, I don't want to have to pick the tires of my car from an app that I'm going to use once every 2 years. Right? It's a pain. So, you know, make it available in methods that they can easily access it, and you don't need that. All right. So where do we go from here?
It's funny.
It's business cat. It's business cat. No, you're. No. This is just this is a meme called business cat. So where do we go from here? Where do we in student affairs go with all this crazy new technology and all of these new things and the new ways that students are communicating? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Things are changing. I can't tell you how interfaces are going to be with our students in the next 3 years. I would argue very strongly that we're going to see a shift, and this was brought up at the conference I was at as well, to prove that it's worth coming to college. You can now go and watch every lecture at MIT on YouTube. Every lecture given at MIT is on YouTube. I can get an MIT education on YouTube. So why do I need to go to MIT? Why do I need to go to UK? you come for interaction, community, these kinds of things. These are the things that really keep and engage our students. There's a lot of lectures at MIT. I'm not going to watch all of them. I'm going to get lazy. I'm going to stop. But if there were other people watching with me, if there were other people engaged in this sort of trip with me, that's what we know keeps students involved. So,
You say that they come to school for this interaction and this community, but at the same time, we're kind of getting away from that with everything going on, right?
I think that is a misconception on our part. I think that we see the electronic community as less real than a face-to-face communication. But students are showing us that they don't need to communicate one-to-one anymore. They can communicate one-to-many. Statistics show that students that are high engagers in things like Facebook and Twitter are more likely to be retained. So, I can't quote them off the top of my head, but there's studies that show that exact correlation. I can't remember what they were called. They talked about it at the conference.
This Ray Junko.
Yeah.
They did the survey.
Yeah. So we know that virtual interactions, well, one of the things that the reasons for that is students don't typically create virtual connections to people they have not met in real life. And I talked about this last time, that students meet people first, then form that virtual connection is a supplemental connection to people. You don't go and add people that are in your class just like, oh, these people are all in my Philosophy 500 class, I'm going to add them all. No, it isn't until you talk to them like, oh, blah, 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 well, let's talk sometime. Are you on Google Plus, or are you on Facebook, or are you on Twitter? Let's have an interaction. And then it's a supportive sort of thing. So anyway, let's get to discussions and questions, and there's the QR code for problems. If anybody missed it the first time when it was really big and huge on the screen. This is also currently the URL if anybody wants to write it down, goo.gl, and then it's randomly generated as but that URL and the QR code actually also provide me with statistics. So that's why we're using the fancy goo.gl is a URL shortener from Google, and it gives you all kinds of neat statistical breakdowns of how people got to the site and that kind of stuff. So do we have any questions? Like, I'm open to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, as long as y'all want to talk, or until they kick us out of this room. No questions? Anybody?
This might be associated with what you just said, but I always think about what's the best way to communicate with students, and I know that's changing constantly, but we're still relying a lot on email, particularly student staff members, and trying to think about how to make sure they get information from us that they need and stay in touch. And any thoughts on how that's going to change? Or
students very frequently see email. Again, this is all from the conference I was just at. Students see email as very. They see it as like sort of a yesterday thing. They use it. They understand that it is a part of like business today. But a lot of students just don't check their email like they used to, or if they get their email automatically delivered to their phone, they check it automatically, but they don't put as much stock, they don't read it as closely, and I think that's partially because email over the history of the internet has been kind of full of spam, and most people are pretty inundated with spam and those kinds of things. So email is kind of a hit or miss. If you wanted me to tell you a better way, I can't tell you that I know one off the top of my head. We're just going to have to see how technologies evolve in the next years, 2 years, to see what's going to be sort of the prevalent form of communication. Text messages, honestly, are probably one of the most receptive for students. And if you wanted me to shoot a guess up there, if you want information to be disseminated, I found out how many of your, say for instance, your resident hall staff have cell phones with text messaging. I would venture to say it's in the 90%, in the upper 90s, that they have cell phones and text messaging. because that's one of the primary reasons students and children get cell phones today is to text messaging and use it as a communicative device. I didn't put that slide in because I thought it was a little dull. Not my whole thing. It's
So Jack, question.
Yes.
In your conference that you just came from, and all of this technology and what's happening, where we're going, I was thinking about, as you were starting your presentation, if I just walk over and unplug you. All right, and just take that more broadly. As I'm thinking more sinisterly, we're all connected, we've got Facebook, we have everything, and the way I sabotage all of you is to take your power away. And I've disabled the world, 75% that's not here in the United States. I mean, and so then what do we fall back on if we're not developing at the same time alternative communicative devices? So you can't necessarily throw out the old necessarily, but it has to be merged, as it were, with where things are going and is indeed going to be applicable to my particular situation.
I had a very interesting question recently. Someone asked me, they said, blah, 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 I was talking about a particular thing that I saw that integrated with Facebook, and I thought it was really neat. And it's a roommate thing. And I was like, wow, that's a really neat technology. It's really useful. And it integrates very heavily with Facebook. And then I was talking with someone at this conference, and they said, well, how long do you think Facebook's going to last? I don't know. How long do you think Facebook's going to last? How long did you think MySpace was going to last? 3 years. And it was tanked. It went from one of the largest sites on the internet, worth $185 million, to it was recently purchased for, I think, $27 million. So, lost a substantial amount of value in 3 years. And the reason for that, it's not because people stopped doing these things, it's because they went to a new thing. So your question is very valid in as much as, what are the new things that people are going to get to, and what are these new methods of communication? Again, there are potentially things coming that we don't even see. Some of the largest revolutions are things that we don't see until they're here. And then suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, that is like, you mean I can search the internet from one place? Get out of here. The whole thing? Google. So I think it's just one of those things where it's hard to predict. I don't think, short of a national disaster like an EMP going off and then disabling all electronics, which would be pretty amazing and catastrophic. I don't think people are going to stop. I think it's just going to mutate, modify the way they communicate into different mediums. Like I said, as a matter of fact, I watched my videos from 3 years ago, and in my video from 3 years ago, I said, you watch Google and YouTube, since they've combined, will present some sort of live video chat thing that will become the way people talk. I said that 3 years ago. I can predict the future! No, so I mean, that's the thing is we can postulate on how things are going to go, but any other questions, comments, concerns? Afraid the computer's going to take over?
When we're doing the QR codes, do you find that it's easier to use something like TinyURL, to use a smaller, because it makes the picture a little bit cleaner, or does it really not matter if it's a really long URL? Do you suggest using one to make a small one when you're generating QR codes?
I'll tell you that TinyURL is cool, but it's a tiny URL is actually kind of a long URL. I'll tell you the ones that I use. I like Google. I like goo.gl, and one that I really like is bit.ly, bit.ly. Go.gl and bit.ly are both very good URL shorteners, and both provide QR codes when you shorten. So, other questions? Anything else? Mind's still blown, still got big eyes. Still thinking about it all. Well, I want you all to think about it. Feel free to call me if it's about this, not about problems. And just sort of soak it all in. Think about what all this data means, how we're using video to communicate, and how we can better foster our virtual relationships to keep those students engaged and members of at least a virtual community. So, thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Quite interesting. We need to have Jack back more often. I think certainly things change. Jake's in the back. So take care and have a great day. Take some rolls.